Hello. Welcome to Therapist Connect broadcasts. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Caz Binstead and I'm the co-lead of Therapist Connect. And we're here today to do a private practice special event. It's very exciting. You get not one, but two private practice experts and published writers in the field. So that's me. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Jane Travis. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Kaz. It's so great to be here. I know we've spoken a few times. You've been on my podcast, so it's lovely to come over and see what's going on your podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been on Jane's podcast. That's something we can talk a little bit today. I'm just going to introduce Jane properly. I'm just going to read a little bio. So Jane was a counsellor for 14 years and knows how hard it can be to attract clients. She's helped hundreds of other therapists now to grow a profitable practice out of passion. She runs the Grow Your Private Practice membership, produces the Grow Your Private Practice show podcast, and was author of the Grow Your Private Practice book. And she lives in beautiful Lincoln with her grown-up kids and dog Kim. I was saying you sent a photo of Kim the other day to me. And I also have a dog, so I don't know. Maybe this is key to having private practice success or something. Having happiness with a dog. I just want to show Jane's book. So you can see a lot of things there about grow your private practice. And we're here today to talk about a big part of that on the marketing side, which is blogging. So, do you want to just say a little bit about why blogging in general is such an integral part of private practice?
Absolutely. Before I started as a therapist, I had a couple of other jobs before that. And part of the jobs that I had before that, which were kind of online, that were blog based, I started to learn how to produce blogs and how to produce blogs, not just to share my life or anything like that, but to actually work as a marketing tool to help the people that would be the sort of people that I wanted to help to find me and recognize that I was the right sort of person for them. So I've been doing blogging for a long time. And I think that blogging is something that's vastly underused within the counselling community. And I've been thinking about this, and I think that it might be because I think there might be a bit of a mix-up about what blogging for business really is. Because originally when people started blogging, I mean, blogging's not that old. I mean, it's people started blogging, I think, well, I started in 2005 as a counsellor. And when I started, Facebook was very, very new. That's how old I am. Facebook was very, very new, and everything online was quite new. And blogging was something that people were starting to use. And when I first started, blogging for a lot of people was like their own journal. So they would produce a journal, and blog actually stands for web log, and that sort of turned into blog. So it was a web log, and it was basically a private journal that people would put out there. People would talk about their life and their ups and their downs, and people do still do that. And I do sometimes wonder if therapists are kind of thinking, well, that's what they have to do. They have to share their life and share about their, what's going on in their life and, what they think and what they believe and how they feel about things. And of course, that's not really what you're looking to do as a therapist, for lots of reasons. But it's not ethical for you to be talking about, your family circumstances and, all of that. So blogging on a personal basis is not what we're talking about here. So I just wanted to sort of just let people know, because I know some people are really worried about blogging, that it means it means they're going to have to share and overshare things in order to put something out there. So I just want to let people know, if anybody is worried about that, then that's not really what we're talking about. So what I'm talking about is producing blogs that are put together as a way to be useful and interesting and helpful for your ideal client. And the reason for this is I think it's agreed, you'll probably know the statistics for all of this, but I think it's agreed that one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, when it comes to client success, and I think this is amongst all modalities, is the importance of the therapeutic relationship. Would you agree with that, Caz?
I absolutely would agree.
Yeah.
Yes. And hopefully we could talk more about that, because
Mm.
there's this real line, I think, between what you're saying in terms of people's personal and their personal life, and then being authentic in private practice and being yourself. And that obviously comes into stuff around relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think if we look at the whole picture of marketing as a whole, from your website to social media to blogging to anything else that you do, leaflets, anything, everything that we're doing is we're trying to let people know the sorts of people that you prefer to work with, the sorts of people that you feel really passionate about working with. Everything we do in our marketing is to let people know that if they're ready to come for counselling, then you'd be a great choice. And you're letting them know by the stuff that you're sharing, the words that you're using, the examples that you're using, the topics that you're talking about. And people will then gravitate towards you because you're talking about the sorts of things that they're feeling really worrying about or need help with. And it just helps people to see you as being really relatable. It helps people to see that you are kind of normal, for want of a better word, because I think sometimes what I see very often is that therapists are really, really trying not to call themselves experts. And by doing that, they kind of sometimes struggle to really let people see where their expertise is. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think sometimes there's this feeling that I can't say I'm an expert, because that's like, well, I'm not an expert. And it's in the counselling room, the client is the expert. So I think sometimes we're told that so much that we then shy away from letting people see that we have knowledge, authority, and an expertise.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Go on, James, go on.
yeah, no, that's fine. And I think because we sometimes like shy away from that, it means we're not very good at actually getting out there and saying, look, if you're struggling with these things, I really care about those things. Those things are important to me. And I started being a counsellor because those are the sorts of things that matter to me. So if you are struggling with those things, I'm here to help you. And that's what marketing is. It's not saying, hey, come to me because I'm the best counsellor in the village or anything like that. It's really just very much saying, look, I love what I do. I'm here to help you. If these are the sorts of things you struggle with, I love working with those things and I will help you. And so all of marketing really for me is sharing that in loads and loads of different ways.
Absolutely. And, I think it's important for people to really think about that, the language, and to maybe choose language that suits them best. So it might be niche, it might be specialism, but I agree. I thought you put that in such a concise way, actually. And it's really important that people, I guess, can look at the blocks that they might have with regards to marketing. And it could even be a block like, I don't feel confident enough to actually say I'm a specialist in this or this and this.
But that's the beauty of it, because you don't actually have to. You don't have to say, you don't have to try and show off when you're in your marketing. That's, to be honest, if people think you're trying to sell to them, it makes them go, oh, it doesn't, we know ourselves. If you go into a shoe shop and somebody immediately comes over and, oh, can I help you? It's like, I can't get out of there quick enough unless I actually need some help. But people don't like being sold to. People don't like that. But if you're there to just say, look, I'm here, this is what I love to do, this is how I help people, then that means that they're going to be more likely to come to you. There's going to be more of a connection there. And that, to me, is the start of that therapeutic relationship, start of that sort of therapeutic bond. So people are getting an essence of you just by what you're putting on your website, what you're putting on social media, what you're putting in your blogs, what you're putting in all of your marketing, just through you, A, being yourself, and B, knowing who you really love working with. Because I think that most people come in, I'm not going to say most people, that's a ridiculous thing to say. I haven't got the evidence around that, but I tend to think.
Go for it, anecdotally.
Anecdotally. I think that people get into counselling because they've been drawn to it for some reason. It's either that they've experienced something or they've seen somebody that they love experiencing something and they've not known what to do to help. So I think that people get into counselling because of passion. It's passion that drives people in to do it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I think that's a really important part of people setting up their private practice, to really think about, why am I doing this? And, how have I made my journey into private practice even? Because actually, sometimes, as you know, Jane, there can be a lot of worry around private practice and setting up private practice. But sometimes we forget that we can love our jobs, we can love what we do. And I really I really chimed with what you said there about the therapeutic relationship starting at that point. That's a good way for everyone to think about it.
Yeah. I was going to say something, then it's gone right out of my mind. Oh, what was I going to say? Can't have been the truth, can it?
Well, listen, if it's an absolute pearl of wisdom, it's going to come back to you. But
yeah. Sorry, it's come back. What I was going to say is, I used to talk a lot about the benefits of choosing a niche. And I even used to have a know your niche service that I provided. I work a lot with niche, really a lot. Most people that come and become a part of my membership, it's the first and it's the most important thing to do. But again, sometimes it's about the language that we use, because I think so many people hate the word niche. It just feels like, oh, I'm going to put myself in this little corner and I'm going to tell everybody that, no, I'm not doing those things. I'm only doing this. And then I'm going to get bored and it's going to get samey. And that's really not what having a niche is about. It's not about putting people off. It's about shining a light on who are the right people so that people do gravitate towards you. And it's just such an important thing to really hold on to, because what I've started to do now in my marketing is I don't talk about niche anymore, because I find it can put people off. It's like, oh, niche sounds scary. It feels like I've got to be an expert in something. And I've only just started out, and it can be really have negative connotations. So the way I talk about it now is about learning and understanding who your ideal client would be, who your dream client would be, and learning about having empathy with who they are, what they're feeling at the moment, what their needs are, and importantly, what do they want from counselling? So on their last session of counselling, when you say, okay, what do you think has changed for you? They can say, oh, this and this and this. I feel more confident in this and I'm able to do this. The more we can understand what that is that people really want and what they're hoping to experience from counselling, the more we can share that those things are possible, without us saying, I can, get rid of your depression in like 5 sessions or anything like that. We're going to be what's the word? Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm at a funny age at the moment and words just keep going, but you're going to be ethical. You're always going to be ethical in what you're doing. We're not going to do anything dodgy or persuasive, or we're not going to try and manipulate. We're always going to be ethical. So we're just sharing that we can help people.
Yes. So if somebody is kind of new to private practice and they hear you saying blogging is really important, where are they going to start?
Right. Okay. Where are they going to start? I think the first thing is knowing who your dream client is, because otherwise, how are you going to know what to write to attract them? So if you say, right, I want to be a generalist counsellor, I want to help everybody, that feels like a wonderful thing, but where do you even start? You know, in one in one podcast, I'm saying podcast now, I'm sorry, I do apologise. In one blog, you could be talking about bereavement. In another blog, you could be talking about abuse. Another blog, you could be talking about, just different issues. And it could be it just becomes so broad. And there's a saying in marketing that if you try and attract everyone, you attract nobody. So for me, the most important, and this is what I've got in my membership, the foundation course, that's the very first thing that they do. And in that, we're looking at, who is your ideal client? What is it that they want? And what is it that you want? Because having an ideal client means that you're going to be working with the sort of people that you really love working with, and when you're in business, when you're in practice, I think the more you can make it about you doing the things that you love and seeing the people that you love working with, then the more happy that you're going to be, all around.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the number one thing.
Yeah,
Really
so the number one thing really is, know who it is that you're wanting to attract. And then we start using our empathy. So we start thinking, I've just done a workshop about this a couple of weeks ago. I've got two things to do with empathy in my course. One of them is called the empathy exercise. The other one is the empathy brainstorm. And what this is about is really getting in touch with the ideal clients that you have and thinking, right, well, how are they feeling? What's going on for them? What do they need help with? So, for example, do they have, are there myths going on about, could there be myths going on that means that they are not going to counselling because they have a myth of, I'm not bad enough, this isn't a mental health issue, there are lots more people worse off than me, she'll just laugh at me because my problem's not very serious. People might have ideas and myths and stuff that stop people coming to counselling. So if you know your client, if you've got an idea of who your client is, you can look at your current clients who come to you, who have those sorts of issues, and through talking with them, the sorts of things that they might have going on in their life. What might stop them going to counselling in the first place? What are the sorts of things that might get in the way? And then you can start writing a blog post about, you can start writing a blog post about why counselling would be a good choice. So you can start dispelling some of those myths. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And that's actually really interesting to hear because a lot of the time when people talk about blogging for websites, they're going to say, oh, why don't you pick a topic like anger or anxiety and write on that. But actually, I really like that idea of, you're really trying to tap into what the client might be feeling or thinking.
Yeah. So I think that when you really know and understand who your client is, and I know all clients are different. When I talk about having a niche or knowing your ideal client, it's not that there's only one person. So I have something called seedling niches. So I would say if you don't know where you want to go, you don't know where to start, what I did was when I was writing my book, I thought, how can I help people with niches? And I thought, right, let's have a think about the sorts of things that people come to therapy for. What are some of the main topics? And I've split it into 4, but kind of 6. So the 4 main ones are bereavement and loss, or sudden change, I call that as well. Relationships, and I mean, single relationships. So relationships could be any sort of relationships. That could be romantic, it could be family, it could be self-esteem. And the other one is anxiety. I think anxiety is another one. So I think that most of the time when I looked at the people that were coming to me for therapy, they could broadly be put into one of those 4 kind of broad headings. So if you don't know if you don't want to have a niche, if you feel like niching sounds too much, if you choose one of these seedling niches, these are a great way to get you started. So you can say, right, I really like talking, I really like working with relationships. And then you know that this everything you write about in your blog post is kind of from the point of view of relationships. So it doesn't mean that you're hemmed in so that you can only write about a certain type of relationship. It means that you can talk about all sorts of relationships. So you can talk about anxiety, but you'd look at how is anxiety affecting my relationship, or how is my relationship impacting my anxiety. So it all comes under the same heading of relationship, but you can actually talk about anything you want to, as long as you put it from the point of view of that seedling niche. Does that kind of make sense? Because I know this backwards, but I'm just
Yeah, it does. So really something for people to think about there.
yeah.
What about if someone's listening to you and they're thinking, oh, I really feel very nervous about writing. Like, do I need to get somebody else to do that for me? What would you say?
What would I say? Well, I would say if you can talk, you can write. That's the first thing that I would say. I would also say that one of the things about blogging is it's a conversation. And I think that's one of the things that maybe puts people off about blogging, because I think people sometimes think it's got to be like an article. I think we're so used to writing articles and all of that sort of stuff, writing formally within our training. Writing a blog post can feel like really, really different, but it's very, very casual. You're going to use very casual language. In fact, you shouldn't really be using any psychobabble. You're using the most simple, basic language, because the more simple you make your language, the more intelligent you appear. So you don't have to put big words in. It's kind of a misnomer, that. Now, there's somebody who was, I think she's still in my membership actually, Zoe. And I did a few sessions with Zoe. And I can remember saying to her, have you thought of doing any blogging? And she says, oh no, I couldn't do that. And I said, well, maybe look into it, maybe look into it. Fast forward, and we've got, let me just share Zoe's book. This is Zoe's book.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So Zoe started writing, and she did a podcast with me, and it was about going from I can't write to writing a book. And she shares in the book, she shares a story about when she was young, and very young. I'm talking, I think she was only about 7 or something. She was sharing the story about when she was very, very young, she couldn't spell the word umbrella, which of course she couldn't. And she kind of had some criticism about it. And I think she might have got given extra help with it. And that kind of made her feel that she couldn't write. So she got it into her head that, I can't write. But she started sort of just going into it and just learning how to blog. And blogging, really, I think for anybody, if you can, like I say, if you can write, you can blog. It's not about showing off. It's just about, imagine you've got somebody sitting opposite you in a cafe and they say, do you know what, I'm feeling whatever. It's about you, just the written form of what you're going to say to them. So if you write a blog, you don't have to go and do lots of research. You don't think, oh, I need to go and research this subject, really to the nth degree. Everything you need for that blog is probably going to already be in there. It's already knowledge that you have. It's just about getting it out. That's the thing. And the way to do that, excuse me, there are ways to learn how to write a blog. But the long and the short of it, it's just practice. It's literally just practice. And if you saw my first blogs, I mean, you'd shake your head and you'd think, that's hilarious. What's going on here? She's now teaching people to write blogs, and look at what she was doing. But it is literally about just practicing and trying and practicing and trying. And you just gradually learn. But one of the biggest things that I recommend that people do, and I recommend people do this with all of them, with all of their marketing, social media, website, whatever. And I recommend that you actually just, whatever you write, read it out loud. And I don't mean read it in your head because there's people around. Find somewhere where people aren't around and actually read it out loud. Because if those words don't flow, you'll know they're not your words. So you're going to be using words that don't sound like you. Now, remember, one of the points of having a blog is that it helps people to really get a good feel of you and the words that you're using and things like examples that you use, and you can share share your sense of humor. You can do all sorts of things in a blog, but what that's doing is it's giving people a chance to get a feel of you in a way that if they come to a first session of counselling with you, you're not going to share, you're not going to share your background with them, but they're going to get a sense of who you are by what you're wearing, the way that you're talking, the examples the way you wear your hair. They'll get an idea of who you are through those social cues. And it's the same with blogging. They'll get an idea of who you are just by the things you talk about, the words that you use. And that's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely. Lap all of this up, folks, because it's so important. Really, really just great information that you're giving there. And that point that you made there about, people coming for their first session, it's a point that I make quite a lot, because if there is this mismatch between how you are marketing yourself, you could be doing like on paper a wonderful job with writing, like you say, write something which has got loads of research about things, and what a wonderful piece of writing. Or you could be on paper doing this wonderful marketing, but if it's nothing like you, and if when the client walks into your consulting room, there's a mismatch between what they've read and how they're experiencing you in relationship, that's a real problem. And of course, actually, as private practice therapists, we're not just thinking about having people come along for one session. At the end of the day, we do what we do because we love it, but it's also a business. Yes. So we want, actually, like you've said about your ideal client, you want to be reaching to your ideal client, and you want to be then actually working with beyond the first session those clients.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a really important point that you make there, Caz, because the more that you can get rid of that idea that you've got to write an article and it's got to have like all sorts of examples and it's got to be, the more that you can get rid of that, the better. So if anybody does have my book, they'll know that the way I write, one of the things people say about my book is that it's so easy to read. And it's easy to read because it's just in very normal language. So let's just think about why we're putting a blog out there. We want to attract clients. Of course we do. How are we going to attract clients? We're going to let them know that if they need to go to counselling, you'd be a good choice because you really understand what's going on for them. So let's have a look at that in a more practical way. Let's have a look at the fact that I would say the majority, if not all counsellors, are on some sort of an online directory. There's loads of them, aren't there? But most people are on some sort of online directory. So just have a think about the process of what happens when people start looking for a counsellor. They'll either Google counsellor in their area, or they'll find an online directory and start looking. And then it's like, oh my God, there's just like thousands of counsellors and they're all saying the same thing, and oh my God. And I've had this recently with somebody that I know who said they were going to get some counselling, and I asked them how they were getting on, and they said they're all the same. They're all the same, and they didn't know who to choose, and they never went to counselling. We could be putting people off accidentally because we're trying too hard to be, like, I'm using air quotes here, professional counsellors, rather than we're trying to just be, I guess normal is just the word that I want to use, So when people go on Google or go on a counselling like directory of some description, they generally have a look around, get a bit overwhelmed, and then they find a few, maybe 3, and they think, right, I'm going to look at them a bit closer, and they'll go and check on the website, and they'll have a little look and see, right, who do I want? If they go and check on your website and you're writing blogs that are specifically for that sort of person, talking about things that they care about or struggles that they're having or ideas of tips to try or, all sorts of different things written in a way where your warmth comes out, then they're going to choose you. You're going to be head and shoulders above somebody else who's got the, I call it the A to Z of counselling problems, you know, abortion, adoption, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you're saying, right, these are specifically the type of people that I love working with, and these are the things that I do, they're bound to be gravitating towards you because they know that you understand and care, and they're going to feel, I mean, it's understanding. It's all about understanding. It's all about going and feeling not judged. And I think this can really go a long way to that.
Definitely, yeah. One of the reasons that I really love what you do, Jane, is because you offer lots and lots of different options for people who are going into private practice, already in private practice. We've already mentioned the book. You've mentioned your paid membership. So you obviously have your club and consultancy. And then you also have free stuff for the community as well. And that's absolutely great. So we touched on Jane's podcast earlier. So this is free for anyone to listen to, and it has lots and lots of different guests. Is it monthly, Jane?
Well, it's weekly.
Weekly. Wow.
It's weekly.
So there you
glutton for punishment, me. But it comes out as a podcast and a blog because I like blogging so much. I can't it comes out as both.
Great. And you know, this is really something I think for people to check out, because actually, you know, not everybody is going to need to pay to, you know, have training or consultancy. We know that, you know, this isn't really, private practice isn't really touched on enough in training. So I think all private practice experts would say, do something. But not everyone's going to need to pay for things. But, you know, if you want to access free community resources, they are there as well. So I really love the fact that you offer that kind of variety for people, Jane.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Whilst you're saying that, I do have some free resources, and one of them that I think would be useful for people who are thinking about blogging and thinking, well, what would I write about? I've got a free resource that I'll share with you. It's called, in fact, well, I'll share the details. It's called, what's it called? How to Generate Blog Post Ideas That Will Attract More Clients. And it's the Journey into Therapy. Okay, so it's looking at the client's journey into therapy. So not everybody what am I saying here? Right. So some people don't know they need therapy to start with. It's just like, oh, I'm not feeling good about something. Something is starting to upset me, but they wouldn't think, oh, I need therapy, because they're not at that point. And then they go through a process of then thinking, oh, there is something that I'm struggling with. I need some help. But where do I go? Should I go to counselling? Or should I go to hypnotherapy? Or do I just need a holiday? You know, so there's steps about that. And I've got this this resource, and it's all about, you know, the client's journey into therapy. And it looks at the 5 different parts of the client's journey, and it gives you some ideas of blog posts or social media posts that you can share at those different phases. So I'll just share one with you. So where is it? So there's one here that is, I know there's a solution to my problem, but I don't know which one is right for me. So that's like, in this example, it's like this person is struggling with the death of her mum, but she's unsure of the best way to deal with the situation. So obviously, if you're somebody who is working with bereavement, you could then do a blog, something like, you could do a blog that's called, I'm Not Depressed, Do I Need Counselling? That's a good one for anybody, really. But if you're bereaved, it doesn't necessarily mean you're depressed. So people might think, well, I'm not depressed, but I am. Do you know what I mean? So you could write a blog about managing loneliness after loss. You could write a blog about how to create a memory box. You could write a blog about how to cope with anger after bereavement. Or you could write a blog about when will my grief end? So when you know that somebody's struggling with bereavement, then you can start thinking, right, okay, well, what does that mean if I look at it a bit closer? And that means that just through looking at that briefly, there's 5 different ideas. And then you can start writing blogs, just helping people in those different things.
Yeah, that's great to kind of hear some examples there.
Mm.
And actually, Jane, if you send that over to me, I can make sure that that goes into the notes with this video.
Sure.
This has been such a great chat. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you kind of think, oh, I mustn't leave without having mentioned that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Let me see if I've written anything down in my notes here.
We covered a lot.
I suppose the biggest thing I would say is starting to write a blog, starting out as a private practitioner. It's not easy. I think it's a difficult road because we're having to, very often I see people having to deal with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all of those self-sabotage techniques, and the pain is real. I still get it now, very much so. I don't think it ever goes. We have to learn how to address it. So I think the biggest difficulty is the self-sabotaging that we do for ourselves. And that's why it's really important to keep doing personal development work, learn about yourself, learn about the sorts of things that you're good at doing. You know, blogging's great. I love it. Not everybody wants to blog. If you don't blog, what could you do? Well, you could do YouTube or you could do a podcast. There's loads of different ways of getting the same thing. So it's not about me saying, right, you must blog. That's not what this is about. But it's saying by doing one of these ways where you're creating content, so whether it's blogging or podcasting or YouTube, it means that you're putting yourself out there and you're getting all of the benefits of starting to get that therapeutic relationship coming along. It helps with your SEO. It helps with the know, like, and trust factor. It's got loads and loads of really good positive things going for it. So I would say you have to take time to learn how to do it. You have to take time and you have to sort of throw yourself into it. You know, read blogs about learning how to blog, you know, buy my book, buy other people's books, you know, listen to podcasts about how to do blogging, you know, just really learn about it and you'll be surprised what's available and what you can pick up. And of course, my membership's out there. Yes, it's a paid membership, but it's £45 a month. And I think it's fairly priced for what people get. And it means you get that extra help. So if anybody does want to, then, you know, just come along, come and join us. But there's loads of information out there and it's all down to, I think, how much time you have to work it out yourself, and whether you want some extra help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you send me everything, Jane, I can make sure that all those different options are in the notes, so that, yeah, folks, you can decide, you know, actually which options work best for me. And it's always good to think about, what do I need a bit more help on, and how do I go about doing that, either now or kind of making a note of it,
Yeah.
for something to do in the near future or whatever. Jane, I always love talking with you. Thank you so much. Some really invaluable advice for our community. And we really appreciate it. This is a recording that's for our Therapist Connect 4th birthday. So it's just been great to have you come along today.
Oh, it's been fantastic. Loved it. Really nice. Always nice talking to you. And I hope your listeners have got something out of it. So
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.